is a follow-up video to my last video about lucid dreaming. There were a lot of wonderful questions and comments. This video may be really long-winded, in which case I'll have to edit for brevity. But you guys had so many interesting questions that all lead to a really important discussion. So I figure let's get into the next level discussion of lucid dreaming and just go from there and see what videos come out of the process. This video will hopefully get into a lot more detail about things I just couldn't fit in the other video that'll help us all along on this journey. So let's get started. First and foremost, a lot of you mentioned fear in dreams, or that you found the idea of lucid dreaming to be scary, or that you'd only been lucid maybe one time in your life and it was a very frightening experience. A lot of people also mentioned the movie Inception and that they're afraid that they could get stuck in the dream, or that perhaps they would go into a coma or some sort of psychosis and not be able to function properly after the fact. And I just wanted to reassure you all, this is not something that can hurt you. Lucid dreaming has been recorded in human history for thousands of years. It's always been a part of the human experience. And if you just have a normal brain and you don't have any terrible personality disorders that would possibly lead you to having traumatic experiences in your dreams, lucid dreaming is perfectly healthy and perfectly safe. And I wanted to speak to the idea of fear because there is nothing to fear in dreams. And it's something to start reminding yourself. It's not like the movie Inception or the film The Matrix, where if you get killed you can die, or if you wake up you could not find a way to come back to real life and lose your mind and stay in a coma forever. These movies, especially Inception, are made up of 90% truth and 10% fiction, so it's extremely believable, but you must remember it is also fiction. Which leads me to my next point, which is that fear can be a very good indicator that you're dreaming and also teach you really important lessons if you start learning to pay attention. For example, commenter Carmelac2000 said, "This happened to me a lot when I was 16. It scared me. I always woke up from my dream in a dream wearing a white gown in a white room." And that's just one example I'm going to use where you can ask yourself when you wake up, what was that dream telling you? It must have been a really creepy, freaky experience. But it's over, it's in the past, it was all in your mind, it's never, it's not real, it's not here. So what can you learn from that? I'll give you an example from one of my personal dreams. I had a nightmare once that I was swimming in a river with my family. My mom wasn't there, but my dad and my two sisters were, and they were all swimming ahead of me. And there were blobs of seaweed like floating on top of the river, and all of a sudden one of those blobs of seaweed like morphed up out of the water and was a man with like seaweed dreads for hair. And he just had this horrible look in his face, and then another one of the blob people came up and they were like, "You humans, you never learn," and they started coming after my family. And my dad was just floating there perfectly fine, and something zoomed at him and he was sucked under the water and he was gone. And then my sister Ramana and then my sister Namaste were pulled under the water, and I was really freaking out at this point. I knew they were coming for me. So I was like trying to swim backwards, and I was really getting myself ready to fight them, and suddenly the creepy seaweed hair guy dude went under the water, zoomed right at me, and underwater I made claws and I tried to fight him, but bam, everything went black. Everything was silent. I felt nothing. And then I woke up in a small one-room cabin in the woods that had nothing in it. It was all wood, and in the very center of the room was a scrubbed wooden picnic table. And that's all there was, and I think I was naked. And on top of the table was a little note. It looked like a doctor's prescription pad pull-off that had a pre-formatted typed text on the top that said "Lessons learned in life" with a colon, and below that, scribbled in red handwriting, it said, "What are you afraid of?" Phew. And I tell you, when I saw that note, I woke up. It was so deep and profound for me, and I still will never forget the detail of that dream. What are you afraid of? It really was the first lesson for me that which happens in dreams is always an opportunity for learning and never a reason to be afraid. That's not to say that I don't have dreams where I'm terrified. Those still happen, but I have a higher chance of recognizing that I'm dreaming while I'm in that state because I only experience heightened fear, terror, and horror in my dreams. Those are not emotions that I feel, thankfully, regularly in my daily life. Usually everything's kind of cool and it's okay, and maybe I'm frustrated or sad or something, but rarely am I afraid for my life in real life. So if you start contemplating these things and you start putting the track record in your brain of all the different lessons you've learned from the fear you've had in dreams. You'll have a greater chance of recognizing that you're dreaming when you experience that fear in your dreams, which can lead to higher levels of lucidity and also a better opportunity to learn from the lesson as it's happening, as opposed to trying to learn from it after the fact once you wake up. Clearwater Coffee says, I fly in my dreams, especially when in danger, which is exactly true. Because like I said, we don't necessarily experience these high-level emotions during the day in our waking life. And in the dream, sometimes just being so afraid or so anxious can make you realize this can't be real, this never happens, and that can bring you into lucidity. Usually when you're really, really afraid, sometimes you still don't make the step to realize you're dreaming. It's like you have a mild level lucidity. You kind of realize that you're dreaming and therefore can get yourself out of the situation. But you don't have a heightened enough level of lucidity to actually realize that the whole situation is make-believe and it can't hurt you and it can't affect you and you could just blink your eyes and get away from it if you wanted to. There's a few really great examples of people who've used mild lucidity to wake themselves up, such as Isabella07. When I'm aware that I'm dreaming, it's usually because I'm trying to wake myself up. My dreams, for the most part, consist of a sense of urgency or some dangerous situation. I'm always running, making impossible jumps, and sometimes I call out my own name to tell myself to wake up. Minambi said, one of the weirdest dreams I can remember is when I was dreaming about having a lucid dream. Inception, lol. I screamed at my dream to take me to a new place and the walls spun around me. Mild lucidity. Some people really were concerned that you may not be able to wake up or just wanted to know, how long do you stay in a lucid dream or how do you wake up? So I'll read some questions and then give some ideas and answers to that. Nat of London said, what if you're successful at lucid dreaming but then you find you can't wake up? It sounds like fun, but I'm worried. Sue Romero said, when it's time to wake up in the real world, what happens? Okay, lucid dreaming makes you more aware of the fact that you're dreaming, not less. So if you take the train of logic on this situation, you'll realize that there's just no way you can get into a trap of not waking up. I mean, when you're sleeping and you're not aware that you're dreaming and you're totally buying into the story of the dream and doing whatever you're doing and believing that this is what must be done because you think it's reality, you will just eventually wake up. When the dream is over or something frightens you or, your body's just rested enough, you'll come out of sleeping. Well, the exact same thing holds true for lucid dreams. It's not as if once you wake up in the dream world, you can suddenly forget that it's a dream and live it out like your normal life and wake up 10 years later going, oh my God, I never woke up. First of all, you would die without food and water for that long. But that point aside, when you're in a lucid dream, you're aware that you're dreaming. You know that this reality is not real, that all your sensory inputs are a product of your mind, and when your body is ready to wake up or when you decide you don't want to be in the dream anymore, you can just wake up. There's never ever a situation where you're going to be stuck in the dream. Which leads to the next question somewhat, which is how does time function in lucid dreams? R. Zelnick Photography, I think that's right, said, so when you figure out that you're in a dream and can control it, how long usually is that part? Does it move on to another dream or do you wake up after? This totally depends on you and your experience with lucid dreaming and the experience of that particular dream at night. So there's no solid answer. But I will tell you that through extensive research in the lab, it has been found at Stanford University that time is pretty real time in dreams. They had a bunch of lucid dreamer experimenters, oneironauts as they're called, doing lucid dream induction where they had all the electrodes and everything on their eyes and their head all hooked in and wired in so they could monitor brain waves. And when the person entered a phase of REM sleep, they were to bring themselves into lucidity and then at some point in that REM sleep give a signal every 10 seconds. So they would do an eye movement with their eyes and signal, okay, I'm awake and I'm lucid in this dream, and then count to 10, 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, and then do the signal again. And they did that 4 or 5 times. And across the board, it was right within the same amount of seconds, maybe slightly off. So it leads to the conclusion that in lucid dreams, you are relatively aware of time at real time. So with that, it should be encouraging that REM cycles don't last all that long. You'll only lucid dream in the REM cycle of sleep. Your REM cycles get longer as you go on through the night, and also as the night goes on, the time between REM cycles gets shorter. So if you have a lucid dream toward the beginning of your sleep for that night, it probably will only be like 10, 5, maybe 15 minutes. But toward the end of the night, you could ultimately lucid dream for up to an hour. But that being said, the experience in a lucid dream can be so profound that the time can feel different. Just like if you're having a ball with your friends sometime, it can feel like time flies. The same can happen in dreams. If you're having a really great time, the hour can pass in just an instant. And the same holds true, like if you're in a really stressful situation, it might seem to drag on and never end, and the same holds true in dreams. The hardest thing for our brains to do is recognize that the literal truth of your reality in your dreams is that everything's a product of your mind, nothing can touch you, and nothing has to happen. Usually dreams have a story, a place we're at for a reason, or a thing we're doing for a reason. And even if you're aware that you're dreaming and you can kind of start to control your environment a bit by your thoughts, if it's a low level of lucidity, you're still going to buy into the story. You're still going to think, if I don't meet this deadline that I'm working toward in the dream, that, you know, something bad is going to happen. Or you still think you've got to go to the grocery store and buy these groceries because that's the story of the dream, rather than realizing, oh, this is all pretend. I don't actually have to buy these groceries because I don't have to do anything, because it's all made up. It's make-believe. That brings me to talking about the levels of lucidity, which I've already expanded on somewhat, but I wanted to read these comments about it. Alana J said, I naturally have dreams where I know I'm dreaming, but I can't control anything in the dream. It just happens to me. Is that the same thing, or am I just dreaming that I'm dreaming, if you know what I mean? Well, the answer to that is clearly it's a low level of lucidity. You're kind of aware that you're dreaming, but you don't really have control over the situation because you still believe that what you're experiencing is real. And it's not. Even if, like, you can say, it's really crazy because I've done this before. One time my sister kicked a puppy down the stairs and I like took this sad little limp dying puppy up the stairs and I was like, look, it's okay, it's only a dream. But I didn't become lucid. I just knew that, like, I didn't have to cry over this puppy because it was all fake, but I didn't have the ability to do anything else. So that's low, mild lucidity. Makeup with Gabby said, sometimes I know I'm dreaming, but I can't control my dream at all, which is really frustrating. And to that I say, practice, 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 do reality checks. You should be able to get to higher levels of lucidity over time. Hello, sorry my camera died, so I'm coming back to this after a while. I hope that I remember my train of thought. Kat Ali Lynn, who I always read as Caitlin, said, I almost always realize that I dream in a dream. I can't really control it in the beginning, but slowly, after it is becoming a fantasy, I will, and I will find myself just lying in a bed in the morning imagining stuff, not dreaming. Where is the difference between dreaming and just imagination? What a great question. Think about it. When you're having a daydream or you're just imagining something, say you really miss a friend and you're imagining just hugging them and holding them and telling them how much you love them and you missed them, you're still only imagining it in your mind. And you may have some swelling feeling of love and you may sort of be able to imagine hugging them, but it's all imaginary. In your dreams, you can feel it. The sensory input is almost identical to that in waking life. So when you're dreaming of this person and you want to hug them, they're actually there in front of you. You can touch them, you can smell them, you can hold them, and they'll hug you back. That's really the difference. So if you find yourself waking up and you were dreaming, but then suddenly you're just thinking about it, you just went through a slow transition of waking up, and in that process, what you were dreaming about became your first waking thoughts. So you carried on that thought process in waking life before actually realizing that, oh hey, I'm not dreaming anymore, no sensory input's coming in, I'm just thinking about this. Perfectly healthy, perfectly fine, and that's one way people wake up. I never really wake up that way, but I know people do. And it's normal. Don't worry about it. Okay, next topic is journaling. There were some wonderful questions that came in. Mala Mob said, this, meaning journaling when you wake up, doesn't work if you have kids though. There's no time for writing 10 to 12 pages before you get up. That's true. You know what I typically do if I don't have a lot of time is I grab a scratch piece of paper, I scribble in the margins, you know, like just notes. And I mean note everything that comes to mind, especially feelings, senses. Again, we come back to the 5 senses, see, smell, taste, hear, touch. Write down what you can recall, because then if you have to wait and come back like an hour or two later, at least you can probably remember the key things and try and create a narrative by going back in your mind and revisiting that dream. But if you happen to have time in the morning, it's really the best to get it down then, because you'd be surprised how much you lose. In fact, that same person, Malamab, came back and said after that night, after she left that comment, well, I kept waking up last night and looking right back into the dream I was having, and I couldn't believe the level of detail I could capture in that moment. And it's really true. The best, most vivid, accurate revisiting of your dream will be first thing when you wake up, if you can just dive right back into that dream without letting anything else interrupt your train of thought. Elizabeth 01010101 said, in my experience, taking on a small handheld recorder is way more effective than writing in the dreams. You have to somewhat sit up in order to write, and that is stimulating to the senses. It takes much less effort just to grab the recorder and talk into it while still laying down in the bed. Very true. Totally appreciate that. But I would still say you want to have a written record eventually so you can go back and read them, unless you want to go back and spend all the time listening to them, which can sometimes be a lot more of a process. So that's sort of the same idea as scribbling notes, although I'm sure if you were speaking, your notes would be more detailed. But yeah, for some people that will definitely work better. And also, I should mention, you don't have to write it in a journal. You can keep a journal on the computer. There is something about the brain to physical memory, the muscle memory of writing. It's part of, you know, the fundamental learning techniques. If you can hear it, say it, teach it, and write it, you're going to remember and retain it better. So the same is true with dreams, but some people just can't write fast enough, or they hate their handwriting, or they just don't want to put in the effort and they'd much rather type it, in which case, go for it. You know, if you can scribble down a few notes and then get up and do your morning routine and then sit down at the computer for 5 minutes and type it all in, whatever works for you. There's no rules involving dreaming, there's just processes people have researched. So, however it works for you is fine. Greg the Shiz 27 said, my issue is I don't feel like I'm dreaming all that often. What tips do you have to dream more? And this falls under the journaling category because my answer is journaling! You know, I was really into my dreams for about 6 months before I started keeping a journal, but I will tell you, I did not have the experiences that I have now with dreams until I started journaling. Besides, the intention of saying I'm going to remember my dreams and the action of first thing in the morning confirming, yes, I'm going to remember my dreams, what did I just dream, creates a process within you where you realize your dreams are experiences that are valid, that you want in your memory, which trains your brain to remember. I mean, so much of what we remember and recall, all of our perceptions, all of our opinions are based on memories. If we don't remember something, we probably don't have a bias toward that kind of situation because we have no experiences to draw from to develop our judgment opinion. This is kind of esoteric sounding, but it's true of your dreams. If you don't place importance on dreams, you probably won't remember that many. But if you do think these are important and I want to remember, you will remember more. And one way to make a constant intentional affirmation of that is to dream journal. There were questions about interpreting dreams. One, Jen 04912 said, can you talk about the meaning of certain dream signs? I've heard that some can indicate issues that are present in your life or that you're not aware of. And Curie Elison 17 said, do violent dreams tend to mean a particular thing or things? The answer is yes and no. I kind of find dream interpretation to be much like astrology. I take it with a huge grain of salt. Sometimes it's incredibly accurate or very insightful. Sometimes it's really creepy how right it is. But other times it's like, this could apply to anyone. It's vague. It's not a science. And so I tend to stay away from interpreting my dreams. However, you can self-interpret without using symbolism or anybody else's ideas of what certain symbols mean, and go with your feelings. Feelings are at the root of it all. What were you feeling? And always ask follow-up questions. What were you feeling? God, I was just feeling like no one was listening to me. Okay, now ask the next question. What does that say about what I'm going through in real life? You don't need someone else to interpret that for you. You probably are going through a situation or situations where you feel like you're not being heard out, where you feel like you're contributing but not being appreciated. You know, the same goes true with a dream where you feel like you just have no control over the environment. Maybe in your real life you feel like you just have no control over anything. Go with those feelings. What triggered happiness? What triggered sadness? What triggered anxiety in the dream? It will give you lots of clues as to what's happening in waking life that you're processing underneath it all in your subconscious all the time. I just wanted to close this video with some amazing and awesome comments that happened after people watched the dream. The first one is Greg, the Siegster. He didn't say this in a comment, he actually texted me to tell me this, and I hope he doesn't mind that I share, but I thought it was really interesting. Because it's so fascinating the way our brains interpret what we're going through, such as, so he's finally getting back into it, he's thinking, hey, you know, I maybe want to record my dreams and try and get in touch with that silly subconscious deep within me. And he said, I dreamed last night that I was journaling, but I didn't have any paper, so I started writing directly on my new nightstand. I had no clue that I was dreaming. You're gonna have a lot of funny situations, not just Greg, I mean all of us are gonna have a lot of really hilarious scenarios like that where, I mean, we're trying to dream journal, we're trying to remember, but our brains just don't quite get it yet. And yet, you know, you'll be frantically dream journaling in your dream without even realizing that that's what's going on. Okay, can I say this? The Cuckoo for Cocoa Puff left a wonderful comment that said, you know what's funny is last night after watching this, I tried the counting fingers thing a whole bunch of times and then fell asleep. And then I had this weird dream that's too confusing to describe, but at one point I remember I was looking into a pool and the water was a weird color, and so all of a sudden I was like, this is a dream! So I did the counting fingers thing and I had 11 on one hand. So I got excited that I even remembered to do the whole finger thing, considering I just learned it last night. But then I went right back into the dream feeling like I was watching from outside. My control was gone. So it was very brief, but I still thought it was very cool. And I agree, I think that's really cool as well. Novice dreamers or beginner dreamers actually tend to have a lot of beginner's luck because you've never focused on this before. Whereas if you've been practicing lucid dreaming for a long time, you can end up doing a lot of lucid dreaming techniques in your dream and not realize because it's part of your normal life. But when you're brand new to the process, everything is new, and so you have a more higher likelihood of experiencing something that triggers lucidity in a dream, and it actually triggers you because it's all brand new to you and it immediately makes you think what else could be happening but that I'm dreaming. And finally, August 8th said a really awesome story which warms my heart, which said, when I saw this video, I thought to myself, this is stupid. I've never dreamt about having more than 2 hands or more than 5 fingers or anything like that. Then I swear that night I had a dream, and in my dream I noticed my hands and I had 3 of them. And in my dream I was freaking out. I was like, whoa, I do dream that way. And then I woke up crazy. And it is true. Because think about it, in your real life, you never look down at your hands and feet and like check that everything's normal. You just operate on a baseline assumption that your body is exactly the same as it was yesterday and as it has been the last several thousand days of your life. But in dreams, it's not consistent. And so if you make more of a habit in real life of looking at your body and going like, okay, do I have 4 limbs? Everything normal? I'm a girl. I don't have like a boy's privates, do I? You know, I mean, is my hair still long? You know, is my skin still white? You know, a lot changes in dreams, and the more that you can practice observing that in your life, the more that you'll observe that in your dreams and notice the discrepancies. So I guess I would finish this with saying that it is such a really wild, crazy adventure. And I am so grateful that so many of you are interested in this or already participating in lucid dreaming in some way or another. And I really hope that we can form somewhat of a community. Someone suggested maybe I make videos every couple weeks just recounting some of my dreams and what I learned from them. And I like that idea. We'll see how it goes. You know, I'll see what my dreams turn out to be for the next couple weeks and see if there is anything worth sharing. But I think we've got a nice little tiny community here that I didn't even know existed, which is those of us who are really into our dreamings and our own psychology and our own self-help through the healing power of dreams and introspection. And I think it would be great for all of us to continue that conversation in this community here. So I have intentions of doing more videos on lucid dreaming. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'd love if you commented about your experience with the things I talked about. Have you experienced fear? Have you ever experienced overcoming that fear? I particularly want to know what crazy things happened when you tried lucidity that you did not expect. When did you say, I want to change this scenery, and it did change, and it followed your guidance, but did something completely unexpected? I would love to hear about those wild experiences if you happen to have them. Take care, and I will see you soon.